Welcome, everyone, to episode 5 of Swatch and Learn. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. My name is Stephanie Sheridan, and I will be your host today, along with Lisa Ruble, the editor of the Fat Quarterly. Also joining us today are Kari Mathews and Lisa Wilberding from OESD will be here shortly. She ran into a slight delay. She's going to log on as soon as she can. So, the Fat Quarterly has been in print for over 25 years, and it is a way that we can share our amazing fabrics directly with you, the consumers. We have lots of fun and exciting things to share with you today. Please note that we will have time for questions and answers at the end of the episode, so please place them in the Q&A box that you see along the bottom, and you can use the chat window to say hi, let us know where you're from, and we will go ahead and get started with our first presentation. So, Lisa Ruble is not only the editor of the Fat Quarterly, she also designs fabrics and quilt patterns. This issue showcases her second fabric collection that she has called Nature Unfiltered. Let's take a quick look at the fabrics and then we'll hear some more from Lisa about them. All right, Lisa, can you share a little bit more about these amazing fabrics and some of the projects that you've created with them?
Absolutely. I would love to. So I have to say, I have been the editor of the Fat Quarterly since I think about 2013 or 14. I would have to go back and look to be sure, but it is such a treat after doing it for 12 years or so to have my own fabric featured in it. And then to on top of that, to have a commercial made out of my fabrics is pretty cool too. I'm excited to be here talking about this today and to show you my fabric, my quilts, and then tell you about one of the projects in the issue. So I'm going to share my screen and show you a little slideshow. All right, can everybody see that? Yep, okay, fantastic. So Nature Unfiltered is my second collection from Benartex. My first collection was Find Your Way, and that had a nature theme to it. And so when it came time to do a second line, I decided to lean into that nature idea again, but in the same way, just very subtly into the nature theme. So I picked stars, sunshine, leaves, puddles, and then tree line, which I'll talk about in a minute, is actually based on pine trees. So here's the full collection. And as you might have guessed, I really enjoy bright colors. And I also have a soft place in my heart for teals, aquas, and anything in that arena. So the line goes heavily into the cool colors with some teals and blues, and then some grays as well. There are 16 prints total in the collection, made up of 5 different fabric prints. So let's look first at Starlight. So this fabric is special to me because it came from a quilt design that I created a couple of years ago. And it's just been sitting in my what should I do with this pile because I was waiting for the perfect fabric line for it. And I ended up taking the outline of the star in that quilt pattern and turning it into fabric. And when I design fabric, I design it in Adobe Illustrator. I am self-taught in Illustrator, so a lot of the time my designs lean a little bit more simplistic because I can't draw fancy flowers and shade them and that type of thing. But I'm also a modern quilter and I really like working with geometrics and simple shapes and then finding ways to create added interest with them. And so what you'll see in a lot of the fabrics in Nature Unfiltered is I used an echo effect where I would take a main drawing like the outline of this star and then I made it smaller and smaller and smaller so that that shape was echoed in. And so Starlight became sort of the focal print for this line, and it's done in three colors, in a blue, a gray, and a green. And if you look at the three together, you can see they're all a little different in addition to their color because some of them have those echoed stars as outlines, and some of them they're filled in with different colors. So it just gives a little bit of a different effect for each of those three. And I actually have pants made out of the green star, which I didn't wear today because you can only see me from the top up. And I'm going to be at QuiltCon in a couple weeks. And if all goes well, I will have something made out of the blue star for to wear at QuiltCon as well as my green pants. So if you're going to be at QuiltCon, make sure to stop by the Benertex booth and see me and Stephanie and Kari and a number of other Benertex designers and friends. So this is called Tree Line, and the idea for this came from childhood memories of mine in the central Wisconsin, where there are lines and lines of straight pine trees planted, and we would actually hike through there, and then in the winter snowmobile through there. And so I was playing with the idea of just using lines similar to pine needles to kind of recreate that memory. And it obviously doesn't look exactly like pine trees, but for me it works in that way. And I really like the secondary effect of how the negative space around those lines as they get shorter and longer creates a bit of a zigzag. And this is in two colors, in the navy background and then in the aqua. One interesting thing to note about this is I knew I wanted to use it for binding because who doesn't love a great stripe for binding, right? And so originally, when I worked with the graphic department at Benertex about this, we had it rotated 90 degrees, but realized that that would not work for bindings because you didn't get as much of the effect. So we did switch it. And then we have sunshines. And this again has that echo effect going where you've got the main circle and then some smaller circles in. And I work with a couple really talented people at Benertex in the art department with Jessica and with Grace. And they clean up my messes when I don't do well in Adobe Illustrator and come up with great suggestions to make every design better, as well as how to place the colors. And then, of course, tweaking the colors at the end. And this was one where when I showed them my design idea, they had the idea of coloring in just some of the circles instead of all of them. And I really love the look that that created here. And with the sunshines all squished together like that, especially when you look at, say, the aqua ones, you maybe don't even read them as suns, but more as just these cool little circle shapes that have a little bit of fringe around the outside. And those aqua suns, by the way, that and the coral leaves that you'll see next, is sort of where the Nature Unfiltered name came from. Because while all of these prints are inspired by nature, some of the colors went a little bit outside of nature, like aqua and gray suns and coral leaves and navy leaves. And so I came up with the idea with the help of a good friend of mine of bringing in the word unfiltered because we see nature and then we see it in all its unfiltered glory in a bunch of bright colors. Here are the leaves I was talking about. We've got the coral, the apple green, and the navy. And So these also have the echo effect to them where you've got the shapes starting from the outer leaf and then going in. And the inside joke about this is when Jessica first saw these, they had a little nub on the top from where I started my drawn line and came back around. And so she called them pairs. So even after I started calling them leaves and she had fixed my design between us, we still call them the pair design. And then last, and quite possibly my favorite, are puddles. And these were all little hand-drawn ovals that I had done, again, going with that echo effect. And when I was trying to choose the colors for this line, I tried this out. I auditioned this print in probably 50 different color combinations. It's so fun. It's such a great blender fabric. And it changes depending on if you have a dark background with light lines or light background with dark lines. In either way, it's fantastic. But I'm guessing at some point you will see this again because I think this print would look pretty fantastic in any color scheme and with any other prints as well. So those are my fabrics. This is Limbo, the free quilt pattern that I designed to go with it. It uses all 16 of the fabrics, and you can download it from my website, quiltyzest.com. And it basically is a width of fabric of each of the prints, separated by a piece sashing that creates a secondary design. And then just for added fun, I did a little patchwork square border around the outside. And this is a large cozy lap size. And then you can see I use the tree line as the binding, like I talked about earlier. And then there's a picture of it in the flesh. This is when I had it out, obviously not now because it's snowy in Michigan, but had a nice little outside photo shoot with it. And then this is Macrame Magic. Now these blocks are large blocks. They're 18 inches square, so the quilt is 72 inches square. And I did something in this quilt that I really enjoyed doing, which is using two different block background colors, because then it creates a secondary design. And you can see those light aqua and cloud floor patches in the block corners. And I originally designed this quilt in solids, and it was in American Patchwork and Quilting with Benetex's Superior Solids. And I wanted to recolor it for this line because I knew I could have a similar rainbow effect gradating across the quilt. And I really love how it turned out. It looks complicated, but it's all sewing together squares, quick corners, and half square triangles. So it's actually pretty easy to put together. And next is twirled squares. This is a fantastic pattern to showcase focal fabrics or any 6-inch square, like a lot of block panels that cut into 6-inch squares. And so I use the 3 Starlight fabrics in my block centers. And then the design is created by careful placement of a framed border and then a wide sashing made out of the teal and the gray fabrics. So there's all that movement that comes together, and that's all done by the half square triangles and the fabric placement of both the sashings and the frames, which is really a lot of fun. And then, of course, it too has the tree line binding. And then I told you about how the Starlight fabric came from a quilt pattern. And in the middle here, you can see that is the outline that I turned into the fabric. Those stars in the upper left corner were from my original design, became the fabric you see on the left. And then on the right is my Valletta pattern, which is my original pattern. I finally found the right fabric for it. And then of course I had to use Starlight as the border for it since it came from that pattern. And here you can see it. I did it in 2 colorways. I did it in rainbow, but since I know not everyone is gung-ho on rainbow like me, I also did a blue and gray and teal version. And this is made using templates, but it goes together pretty easily. And then last but not least are my Sunset Vibes quilts. This is a landscape trio using fusible raw edge applique. And I've got this picture on the left. That is my parents' cottage in Wisconsin. They now live there full time. And this is one of my favorite sunset pictures. And I knew that since I had the fuchsia, the coral, and the yellow fabrics, I could create some fantastic sunset quilts. So I took the idea of the picture you see on the left and transformed it into the Sunset Vibes Dock Sunset quilt you see on the right. And like I said, it's all fusible applique. I use Heat and Bond Light Sewable, and that's actually included in the kits that are available with this trio from Benartex that quilt shops can carry. And the Sunset Vibes Trio is three different sunset scenes, and they're each 20 by 24. And the longer work is the tracing and the fusing and the cutting. And once you have that done, assembling them is about a 15-minute job, and it's super satisfying to put them together. And so these are probably my favorite from the quilts that I've done for this line. And it's just really fun to watch people see them and then tell their story of which one they connect with and why. So that is my Sunset Vibes trio. And there you can see the last was a digital image. These are them in real life. Also, a great way to practice your free motion quilting skills because it's a smaller design and it's got finite spaces to work in. It's a great way to work on some free motion, which is what I did in these quilts as well. And then we had some designers that recolored some of their patterns in my fabric, so I wanted to share those. This is Triad by Everyday Stitches. And it's so fun to see what other people do with your fabric because they go in directions that, I never would have thought of. So I love this one. And then Retro Crochet by Maud McDonald, the Retro Quilter. And what makes me laugh about this one is how much she used of the magenta. Because when I created the line, the magenta was the fabric I was most iffy about, and I was pretty sure I was never going to use it. And turns out I used it a fair amount, and Maud used it a lot in this quilt. And I just love the retro look of this quilt. And then Mod Box by Colorworks, which is just a fantastic combo of the blues and greens and grays in the collection to create a nice modern quilt. And so, if you would like to see more of what I'm doing with my fabric and what I do in general, I've got another fabric line down the pipeline that'll be coming out later this year. Here's how you can follow me. My website's quiltyzest.com. I have a newsletter there, and there's my Instagram and my Facebook as well. And then I just want to show you one more thing made out of my fabric, which is this Heartapalooza pillow. I did a tutorial for this that is now on Thermoweb's YouTube channel, and it's made using their new Versa foam. It's a very cool foam 3D product. And so I used my Nature Unfiltered fabrics to make a little heart rainbow pillow in honor of Valentine's Day. So if you would like to make this pillow too, you can watch the YouTube video. Maria Elena just put the link in the chat where you can grab that link to go back and look at it. But it's a really fun Valentine's Day project using Nature Unfiltered. All right, back to you, Stephanie.
Great. Thanks so much, Lisa. I love that heart pillow. And just a little thing for everyone. If you're at QuiltCon, there may be something similar, not the whole pillow, but maybe some little hearts floating around QuiltCon. So be sure to find Lisa at QuiltCon and ask her about the tiny hearts. So next up, we have designer Kari Mathews. We've been working with her for several years now and in many different ways. Kari started out as one of our ambassadors and is now one of our Benner experts. She has designed both free and commercial patterns as well as editorial projects using our fabrics, and she has been a consistent contributor to the Block Remix article in our Fat Quarterly. This year, she will be added into our fabulously talented group of fabric designers as well. So, Kari, can you share a little bit about the block that you created for Block Remix and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Hi, excuse me. I'm just so excited to be able to be here with you guys today. When I was a little girl, my mom had a business. She made curtains and bedspreads and things. And so she had swatches of fabrics, And so my sister and I would take those and we would play fabric store. So this is a dream come true. I love it. So thank you for letting me come. So that is just a little bit about me. I grew up loving fabric. My mom was a maker. She taught me to sew when I was, I don't know, 5 or something. And so I haven't looked back. So anyway, this is the block that I made here. I used Seaside Garden by Shelley Kavana. And it's a remix of the Plus block. And so I love curves. I love to throw them in anytime I can. And so I played with that. And then I thought, well, more is better. So let's put stripes in there. And then I went ahead and put 4 patches in the corners. So when I got done, I kind of looked at the block and I thought, it kind of reminds me of like the gardens in, like Jane Austen movies, The Pride and Prejudice. That's one of my favorites. And so I thought, let's garden paths. That's what we're calling it. So let's go ahead and I'll show you kind of just a little demo on how I did the block. And first off, I'm going to show you what I've been doing lately. For templates, I have been laminating them. I just have a cheap laminator at home, but it makes them a little more durable without using the template plastic. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to show you how not to cut because I have done this the wrong way and I had to do an entire quilt cutting them the wrong way. It was so hard. So do not cut it this way. If you put it on like this, you're going to end up with, it's not going to bend. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but it is not, and like tugging on that and it's not folding. So this is when I cut the right way. And I don't know if you can see this, but it's much easier to bend. Okay, so we want it to ease around the curve. Okay, so do you like my flannel graph here? I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so I don't know. Okay, so here we go. So I cut strips and I have a pattern available for this. It's on, if you go to my website, it's prairiequilting.com. And if you subscribe to the newsletter, it'll send you I have a page that has some free patterns on it. So this is on there and has all the measurements and everything. So I go ahead and cut strips and then I just line the straight edges up with the strips and then rotate and go down like that. And same with the other template. So I can nest my seams, get as many as I can. And okay, so then we're going to start off with making strip sets. So we're making 2 sets of strip sets here. This fabric is so pretty. It has all those kind of cool colors, the teals and greens and purples. Okay. So we go ahead and we're cutting smaller units for the 4 patches, and then the long units for these ones. Okay. And we take our 4-patch or small ones and make 4 patches. Okay. And then for curved piecing, I use 3 pins. So I take my pieces and I fold them in half and I give it a good pinch. Okay. And I do that with both of the pieces. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, and now I need my glasses. Okay. So I match those up and then I go ahead and just put a pin in it. And then on the ends here, what the trick to keeping it, getting a square block is make sure those are squared up with each other. If they're not, you're going to get kind of a wonky block. Okay, so I just put a pin in both sides. Do that with both sides. And we end up with a pinned, section. And I love, and I sew with the pie-shaped piece on the bottom. And for me, that gives me less puckers. So I just use my stiletto and ease that fabric in. And I know a lot of people don't like curves. They think they're a little intimidating, but I find that there's a lot of forgiveness because you're just easing fabric in. So, and fabric can stretch. So we end up with our little units here. Okay. And then for the center of this block, it's just a giant 9 patch. And this is a 15-inch block. I made it larger. So we end up with 2 of those. Okay. And then we have just three squares for the center. And that will give us our 9 patch. We can. Okay. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and add two of our 4 patches to the strip set for that top and the bottom. And oops, wrong way. Okay, and then 2 of those to the sides, sew it together, and you have your finished block. Let's see here. Any questions?
Oh, I do see one question real quick. Do you clip the round part of the curves before you press?
I don't. And I also usually I kind of let the fabric tell me which direction to, however it wants to go, I just go with that usually. However, for these little skinny strips like that, I usually like to press away from the skinny strip, and then it gives me, when I sew it to the other pieces, I just feel like I have more control that way. So that's how I press it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Okay. I came up with a couple just quilt inspiration ideas. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here.
All right, Kari, while you doing that, people have asked about your website. Marilyn is going to put the link to the website in the chat for everyone.
Okay,
So
great. Thank you. So here's,
there it is.
okay, so this one I just added, just real simple, put fabric squares next to it, and you get a really good size quilt actually, because this is over 60 inches if they're all 15-inch blocks. And I love the scrappy look, so I kind of mixed up the colors and just, I don't know, made it all scrappy. And then you could add any simple secondary block. Let me get to the second slide here. Okay, there we go. And so this is just a basic 9 patch. So each of those patches would be 5.5 unfinished, squares. And so this is also another scrappy version. So you just kind of highlighting this one block, the plus remakes. So those are, you could substitute anything. All right. Anything else? Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Kari. And I love the way you explained the curve piecing. I hope everyone goes to your website and downloads that pattern for that block. And it will be fun to see what all of our viewers do with that pattern in our fabrics, because I think that block pattern could work in so many of the Benertex collections.
Definitely, definitely.
I'm looking at Lisa's line right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right. So at this point, we're going to take a short break and we're going to pop a little poll question up on the screen. And if you guys could all answer the poll question, anyone that answers has a chance to win a fabulous fabric prize from Benartex. So we'll leave that up for just a second while we get set up for our next presentation. Okay, so moving on, we're going to talk about one of the projects that was in the Fat Quarterly. I was really excited because Lisa and I have been co-workers for a long time, and we've been friends for a long time as well. And when we found out that her collection was going to be on in the Fat Quarterly, I immediately said, "Ooh, can I do the second project?" So I created the bag that Lisa's holding up. And it was a lot of fun to be able to work with her fabrics. I don't get as much time to sew as I would like, but sometimes I get to do it and I get to do fun projects. And it was even more fun to do it with fun fabrics. And then I was super excited to find out that it was on the cover. It's been a long time since I've been a cover girl, so that was a lot of fun. So that is my project, and we're not going to talk about that one today. We're actually going to talk about Lisa's project, which is called the Improv Boxes. In this issue, it features one of her favorite quilting techniques, which is improv piecing. And Lisa's going to give us a demonstration on how to create these really cool one-of-a-kind blocks.
Thank you, Stephanie. And what Stephanie is not saying is that she also then gifted me this zip pouch. So I'm very happy to have it living at my house and will make great use of it. So I'm just going to slide my fabric out of the way and put the Improv Boxes quilt down. So we could have actually called this the curved event for our Swatch and Learn today, because what I did for this Improv Boxes project is little curves, but mine are improv curves, unlike Kari. So there's definitely some similarities in how she did her curves and how I did these, and then some differences as well. So it'll be kind of fun to compare and contrast the two. So I'm going to talk about how to make these squares. And if you can spotlight the one with my workstation right now, that would be great. And I've got some samples made, and I'm going to then show you how to make one as well. Okay, are we all set with the workstation? Stephanie, is that what's showing? I can't tell.
I can see everything.
Okay,
Ryan, can you spotlight
my
the
cutting
screen
mat.
with, yep, there.
Okay. I think that's can you do the one with my cutting mat and my iron? Thank you.
There it
Awesome.
is.
I threw everyone for a little loop because I ended up setting up a third camera for my sewing machine. So I apologize for doing that, but hopefully it will be helpful for you all watching at home. So for making these curves, the reason it's called improv is because we're just going to cut them just loosely with the rotary cutter. So the first thing you do is choose two fabrics that you want to be paired together and lay them both right side up. Very important that they're both right side up. And then you're going to take your rotary cutter and cut a gentle curve. Now, I recommend for the first time you do this, the gentler, the better, just as you get used to it. Here's another one that I did there. You can see with the fuchsia and with the aqua suns. So I'm just going to go from the side and just smoothly through like that. And then you can see I've got that same shape in two different fabrics. So what we're going to do is flip-flop them. And I will end up with two mirror image blocks, one with these two pieces and one with these two pieces. And much like Kari said, we're going to start out by matching the raw edges here. And I will put a pin in to get me started, but I'm not actually going to pin the whole way. What I'm going to do is start sewing with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm just going to keep shifting that top fabric so that it lines up, the raw edge of that lines up with the raw edge of the bottom fabric. So very important when you are sewing these is you want to have your needle in the needle down position so that every time you stop stitching, because you'll need to reposition a little bit, your needle is down in the fabric. So now if you can switch over to my sewing machine camera. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start right at the edge. And because we are going to trim these, there's a fair amount of grace in them. If you don't do it perfectly, it's okay. So I'm going to put my needle down and I'm going to start sewing like this. And I'm going to shift the two fabrics so that my raw edges continue to stay together. And so you can see why doing a gentle curve, there's less adjusting that needs to happen. I'm just going to keep going along, making sure those raw edges are attached. And as I get closer to the end, that's often where I need to stop with the needle down and shift the fabric a little bit and then put my foot back down. And just keep going all the way to the end. Okay, so when you look at it, it looks, well, there we go. It looks a little bit kind of warped, but that's because of the curve sewing that we did. So now if you can go back to my cutting mat and my pressing station. Oh, Susan says she uses stiletto at the end. That's a great choice. And here's what it looks like. And what I'm going to do now is press it. And I press the seam in one direction. And like Kari says, a lot of times the block will tell you which way it wants to be pressed. I actually find it easier to start pressing on the back with these. So I'm going to do that. And then I find it helpful to use a little water because that will steam it and help it to lay even more flat. And there you can see what that looks like. And I've got that nice gentle curve that goes like this. And so then the last step for this is to trim it. And what we're trimming these to are 4 inches square. And you can kind of choose, I can go over here and get more of this larger curve, or I can move my ruler over here. You've got some flexibility in terms of where you're going to trim it because they're a bit oversized. And then I will I do 2 sides at a time because then I only have to reposition the ruler once. And then at second time, I just line it up with the 4. So there's that. I just wanted to show you a couple other that I have done. So these are mirror image ones. And I've got one that is already trimmed and then another one that I'm going to trim. So 2 sides and then rotate it and do the other 2 sides. And then the one I wanted to especially show you is this one right here. Because if you look, you see they don't line up exactly. And that's not a problem because we're going to be trimming it. So if yours end up looking like this, don't think that it didn't go well. It's going to be trimmed off, so it does not matter. So it's all about the pressing when you're done and keeping those raw edges even as you're sewing. So there's another one. And then last, I have to say, I love it with the tree line print. I love how these stripes show up in these curved blocks. And so I used the squares that were in the swatch pack to make all of the blocks for this project. It is a total of 20 blocks. So you'll have a bunch of pairs like that. So that's how you make the curved blocks. But if the curves seem a little bit not your style, I wanted to show you two. I have another version of this, and there's a little sidebar in the pattern that talks about this. I'll get my iron out of the way. So this is the same quilt made just using straight stitches instead. And I have to give my mom credit. She pieced this for me so that I could have it to show for you today. But it's basically the same idea where you take two squares and layer them and then choose a cut. And you can see in some of them there's a skinnier piece of one and a wider piece of the other. Some of them they're closer to half and half. And so you still get a little bit of that improv feel where all of the blocks will be different. Without doing the curve. So if you're not quite ready to try the improv curves, this is a nice version with straight stitches, and you can see it really creates still a very interesting design with all of the blocks looking a little bit different from each other. So that's how you make the blocks for that quilt.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. I like the way you made it very approachable to do these improv curves because I don't do a whole lot of curved piecing. But yeah, I could do these. I could do both Kari's and yours. I don't know which one I'd start with though.
It just takes a little practice. They're not hard. You just have to have for both Kari's and mine, if you don't mind me speaking for you, Kari. But they're not hard. You just need to try it and practice a little bit, and they're pretty forgiving if you don't sew perfectly.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Lisa. So, moving on, our final guest today is another Lisa, Lisa Wilberding. She is the Senior Content Specialist for Oklahoma Embroidery Supply and Design. And yes, that is a mouthful. So, from now on, I'm going to refer to it as OESD, which is how most people do. OESD is one of our sister companies, and we are delighted to share embroidery projects in every issue of the Fat Quarterly. We um, we have so much, Lisa and I have so much fun going through the OESD website to figure out which project we're going to do in each issue. And in this one, if you can see, we did the little luggage tags. So how much
Wow.
fun for travel are those? So Lisa here is with us today to show a project that she created pairing our Into the Wild fabric collection with an embroidery collection that OESD did. So welcome to the show, Lisa. It's nice to have you.
Thank you so much. And I am not the most technology savvy person, so I have a little slideshow that I put together. But first, here is the bag. And I
Oh,
just did a fun
that's
little
cute.
tote using Into the Wild, and I made sure to use it in my lining. More about that in a little bit, as well as inside there. And so, yeah, super fun. I love pairing fabric together with embroidery. It's the best thing. Um, so now I'm going to try and screen share, and hopefully I will do all right. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about Benartex and OESD. We are sister companies, as Stephanie mentioned, and that is exciting for me, at least in my position, because it allows us to really have a lot of fun mixing and matching fabric and creating some really beautiful designs that go with it. Here are just some examples. Glowsaurus, I actually made like a little like play bin kind of a thing, a little softy round circle bin using Glowsaurus. Mystical Mermaids is another collection that was in the past, and you can see I have the fabric sort of matched with the design itself. The one on the very right, some of you might recognize Catitude, was very popular a few years ago. And then Jackie Robinson has done this Winter Chickadees, and we have a collection called Chickadees and Berries, also by Jackie Robinson, that really goes with that fabric. And it's one of the more fun aspects is seeing fabric that Benartex comes out with and saying, ooh, what do we get to play with? Here is another example. On the right is a fabric panel of Thomas Kincaid painting scenes done by Benartex. And then you can see on the left, we took that with our digitizers here in the team, and we went ahead and digitized it and made that into a beautiful tiling scene. So really, really fun. So I really like to look at how those digitizers will take something and kind of almost like bring it to life with a little bit more texture. And I put that pine cone in the middle because to me, this pine cone came from a Benertex fabric, and you almost can't tell the difference between the embroidery and the fabric. It's just very seamless, and I absolutely love it. Into the Wild here by Ann Lauer is the fabric that I used. And then I also paired it with Noodlehead's Quarry Tote. So I used the green blender fabric. I used the gray with the animals as my lining fabric. And then you'll also see that there's some other great options in that line. And that line is not very old. I think it's a very recent collection that has come out. Some OESD products and notions that I used in order to put this bag together is I used something called fusible woven, fusion fleece. I used our print and stick target paper. I used button clips, expert point and press tool, and heat to go. And I actually used the heat to go on the straps. It was pretty fun. I chose fusible woven because it's going to help me prevent bleed through and puckering on my applique and with the fabrics. It's especially helpful if you have something like a dark fabric and your applique is a lot lighter. You want to have something that's going to protect it so you don't see, like, say, a maroon background peeking through the white fabric. That's no fun at all. So having something like fusible woven is super helpful. It is similar to maybe another product that you might know called SF101, but how fusible woven is different is that it is made for embroidery. So it's going to really take all those stitches and hold up after washing and usage and time. So it will also give your fabrics extra body. And you want that effort, that extra body. I always think of it. I am also a Midwest girl. I heard Lisa talking earlier about the upper Midwest. And so I always picture like the skyscrapers in Chicago. And if we didn't have the steel girders to hold up all of that building material, the building would come crashing down. Well, fusible woven is sort of like that. It is going to give your cotton fabrics, especially quilters cotton, that extra beefy structure so that all those threads that go on top of it aren't going to just collapse the fabric and you get a lot of puckers and misalignment. That's no fun at all. And hopefully this will play, but I have a fun little video for you about fusible woven. The other product that I used is OESD Fusion Fleece. It's a lightweight fleece. It's got a glue adhesive on one side. It's really nice to add a little bit of a light trapunto, and you actually don't even need other stabilizers for your embroidery, depending on the density. If you have something that's sort of light, you don't even actually have to hoop any other stabilizer with it. So I use that in place. When I read the instructions for the Noodlehead bag design, I thought, oh, you know what? I bet I could use Fusion Fleece. And what's really nice is on the second picture, I used it with the pockets, and it made my pockets really nice and thick and kind of a comfy feeling. Yeah, I mean, we all know that fabric is therapy, but when you have something that's got like a little bit of heft to it, you're like, oh yeah, that's substantial. I love that feeling when you're making something. And then I use something called print and stick target paper. It's translucent, it's repositionable, and you can use it many times. It is something that you would use with your printer to print it up or to print out your design. And then you can actually test it or audition it with the fabrics that you're planning on embroidering. as well as use it for placement. You'll see that it actually has crosshairs so that you can really make sure that where you are going to put the design is where you're going to put it. It's not stitchable, so once you have your design exactly or your idea of where that design is going to go exactly, then you would want to take that and take it off before you actually start stitching. It is so useful. I use it all the time. I definitely want to make sure that I let you know that you want to use it with your printer and use the photo settings just so that the ink isn't going to smear. It works really, really well. And then I used OESD button clips. So on the far right, you're gonna see my straight pins or my magic pins. When I was putting the bag together, because of the thickness with the fusible woven, the cotton, and the fusion fleece, it was getting pretty thick, and I was bending my straight pins. So I used my Wonder Clips to help line everything up and match my seams up so that I wasn't going to yeah, well, so that I could sew the bag together because nobody wants a bent sewing pin. That's no fun. And I mean, it's not that expensive to replace, but when you bend a pin, you're like, ah. And then I used the Expert Point and Press tool. This is like a stiletto that is hexagonal shape. It's not going to roll off your desk. And what's really nice is that the two different sizes, you can actually go in and open up seams without actually steaming your finger. And for some of us, I will be honest, I'm a little bit of a steam junkie. So I like to use a stiletto so I'm not steaming my fingertips when I'm opening up my seams like I would for a bag. And now I think I even have another little video for you. And then I would love to show you too that I went ahead and on the straps, I decided to do a decorative stitch and I used heat to go so that the stitches were on top instead of settling into the actual fibers of the straps. So I used heat to go for that. And I did have to use like a nonstick foot because of that heat to go. If you're using it for sewing, you want to use a nonstick foot. If you're using heat to go to protect your embroidery, you don't need a nonstick embroidery foot. And then here it is, more up close. I had a lot of fun making it. I loved using the mousse from that collection. It just came out so, so nice. That is actually a collection I'm going to revisit again and again. I'm originally from California, even though I spent a lot of time in the Midwest with my husband, who's from Michigan. Um, the bear just says to me, California, from that collection. So yeah, I'm going to end this hopefully. And if you have any questions, uh-oh, did I lose you in the Zoom? We're going to stop sharing. If I can figure out how to stop sharing, stop sharing.
Here we go.
Okay, there
You
we go.
got
Yay.
it.
So if anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer any questions at all.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and pop them in the Q&A box and we can answer any of the questions you might have for any of our three presenters today. I did see one question, when is this issue shipping out? It has shipped. I believe that most of the shipments have happened. I know that there are a few people that may not have gotten theirs yet. So please give us another week or so. If you don't have it in another week or so, send an email to info@benertex.com and we can track down your shipment. But I have mine right here. Are any of these new tools available? I believe that is for Lisa.
Yes, absolutely, on OESD.com. And we also have a long arm design, and sometimes you might even see some Benner text designs. Spoiler alert, you might see something over in our long arm section is blip, blip. You'll also maybe in the future get to see some fun things from our long arm side that have to do with Benner text.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. All right. So if nobody else has any questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up our show for today. First off, I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and we hope that you enjoyed all of the presentations and learned lots of fun things. And I want to give a special thank you to Lisa Ruble, Kari Mathews, and Lisa Wilberding for being our host or our guests here today, and Lisa for co-hosting. Um, so our fabric prize winner is Kathy Ploucher. So Kathy, congratulations. We'll reach out to you and get your email address or your mailing address and get you your prize. And as always, we'd love to see what you create using your swatch packs. I know Lisa had someone share they had already made two of the tote bag or the zip pouch bags that were in the issue. So please share anything you make with our swatch packs. You can share them on your social media channels and tag us, or you can join our Facebook group, which is called Create Inspire Delight. And be sure to follow us on social media to see all of our beautiful fabric collections and the projects. And I hope that you will all join us for our next episode in the spring. And with that, I bid you a wonderful afternoon. Thanks again, Lisa, Kari, and Lisa. Do you guys want to say goodbye?
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful day, and we will see you again in the spring.